Hello, whiskey folk. It's Roy, 9:45, another Thursday vPub. Welcome, everybody. And of course, welcome if you're watching this and picking it up on the replay. It's fantastic to see everybody in. Pull up a chair, pour something nice, and tell us what you're drinking. But when you tell us what you're drinking, just for tonight, just out of curiosity, tell us what the ABV is as well. Tell us how strong the whiskey is in your glass. And tell us whether or not you're adding water to it, just out of curiosity. Tonight's rough, loose theme is talking about ABV and the strength of the whiskey that we are enjoying and how it relates to your whiskey journey. There's a kind of generic thing, certainly it was true for me, that when I started to get into whiskey, 40% ABV and 43% was powerful enough. And it took me a while to get my head around some of the stronger expressions out there, and I understood in time and only through experience and messing around with water and things like that, what these things were actually meant to be, why they existed at such high ABV. And I think it's true for a lot of people as well. This theme was inspired by the collaboration I had last week with Ben from Scotch Malt Whisky Society, because what we were kind of loosely talking about was single cask whiskies, cask strength whiskies, and how they fitted into the whiskey landscape. And I was kind of suggesting that they come much later in the whiskey journey. But I was also trying to be a wee bit of a devil's advocate to suggest that maybe we need to recalibrate and reset from time to time and kind of go back and explore the 40%, the 43% whiskies that really struck us, the ones that maybe got us bitten by that whiskey bug in the first place. I don't know how succinct I was last week, but I tried anyway. And then Eric Waite was in the live as well, and Eric left a comment, a really quite interesting comment. And I might just grab that comment and pull it up a wee bit later and read it to you. I forgot to do that, but it was quite interesting, Eric's comments on it. And I very specifically remember Eric talking about this subject on a live stream of his quite some time ago last year, maybe, or maybe earlier this year, when Eric was just starting to explore higher ABV whiskies. And I remember him specifically talking about struggling with some ABVs above 46%. So that's kind of what I want to talk about. What I also want to say as well is that a couple of congratulations to go out to a couple of friendly peers of mine. My friends, Jason Whiskey Wise. Jason is always in here looking after me. I haven't seen him tonight. There he is. He's in now. Good to see you, Jason. I'd like to raise a glass and say congratulations on crossing 2,000 subscribers just in the last couple of days. And in the last few minutes before I went live tonight, I checked my friend Vin from No Nonsense Whiskey, who's just hit 3,000 subscribers. So as we come into whiskey season, that's two things to celebrate there. The YouTube community is growing. We're all benefiting from it, and we're benefiting from these guys like Vin and Jason, who's bringing content to us as well. So well done, guys. Congratulations to you both. This is the first live stream in December. And it's going to be weekly live streams. And I kind of threw it out to my patrons and I threw it out to the community to ask, how do you feel about this? Content overload, or are you looking for something to do on these kind of quiet, dark Thursday evenings? If, of course, you're in the Northern Hemisphere. In the Southern Hemisphere, like some of you guys are, some of you are from New Zealand and Australia tuning in, of course, you're enjoying a nice summer. But right now here, it's kind of whiskey season. And it just felt appropriate for me to kind of fill in some of the empty weeks during these winter festive holiday months and kind of pay back a little bit for the break that I took during summer, where I went almost 2 months without doing any regular vPub streams at all. So there we have it. You were overwhelmingly up for it, and you decided that as long as I was up for it, let's do it. These things are always optional, and I'm very grateful to have so many of you in joining tonight on a non-scheduled stream. Now, I've just noticed that my guests have joined me. They're going to join me in a few minutes. And this was a good fit, these guests. I want to talk to you, introduce you to these guys and let you know how I got speaking to them. But I have been sharing the project that they released on YouTube. I've been sharing it on social media. I mentioned it in the description of this video. So there's going to be a lot of you have seen this video. But I'll introduce it to you and I'll let you meet my guests later. and let you know how it fits more or less into tonight's stream. Let's jump into the chat and see who's joined us. Whiskey Jason is here tonight. Now, this is a bit of a shame. I was at the Frankfurt Whiskey Festival last weekend, and it was a wonderful, wonderful trip. Big, massive thanks again goes out to my host and the guy who took care of me that weekend, Macallan Fine and Rare, the doc. Absolute gentleman, looked after my schedule, my itinerary, and everything throughout the weekend, and it was really a wonderful thing to be able to do. But Whiskey Jason was at that event and we'd arranged to meet up. And I walked around and I saw him doing his thing. He was carrying around his LED lamp and he was interviewing people at various booths and things throughout the day. And when I saw him, he was always busy with a microphone in somebody's face. And I decided just to give him a bit of room and see if I could hook up with him later. But I had 3 masterclasses booked throughout the day and he ended up leaving before we had a chance to meet. How can I travel all the way to Frankfurt and miss Jason? But it happened. So my friend, he's saying, Aquavite, one day we'll meet, maybe in Scotland. I hope so, my friend, and I'm very sorry to have missed you in Germany. It was a bit of a disaster. And what was happening, even though when I came out of the master classes, I was kind of switching on my phone, and a lot of the time it had literally no data connection at all. By the time I got to a spot where the data came in, all the messages came flooding in. And by that time I realised I'd missed you, buddy. I do apologise. Let's see who else is in tonight. Tom R is in. Good to see you, Tom. Our baggy Andy is in. Wonderful. Era McFault also joined us at Frankfurt, and I got to spend a bit of time and have a nice dinner with Era on Saturday as well. Another treat. That's quite a few times we've managed to hook up this year, Era. It's been a real treat for me every time. My friend Scott, I was out with Scott last night, Kilted Moose. No, 2 nights ago, Tuesday night, for the last whiskey club of the year. Straz saying hi y'all. That's a new name to me, Straz, or Strats. Good to welcome you in, my friend. Let us know what you're drinking and let me know where you're from. Hoyt is in. Hoyt Hemphill, fantastic to see you, Hoyt. Good to welcome you in again. Thomas Georges is in, saying hey there, Roy. Hey there, Thomas. Good to welcome you. Donald Rance is in. Gus is in. Fantastic, Gus. Good to see you. Malt Review, Jason. Ryan McCleave. Phil, Causeway Coast Whiskey Reviews. Kenneth Kennelty is in. Mose. The Alchemist Sevi also joined me the other night as well. Good to see you. And again, Sevi. James Alsop is in as Rob, my friend Rob from Whiskey in the Six over in Canada. Fantastic to welcome you in, Rob. Christina Kreitner is in, hopefully alongside Marcus. We've also got Rolf from Norway and Whiskey Wolf. Vin from No Nonsense Whiskey. Great to see you in, Vin. And again, once more, congratulations on hitting and breaking that 3K. Very well done. Toys from the Attic. Now, Toys from the Attic, I had a feeling. I'd never seen that tag before, Toys from the Attic, on the last stream. And I looked at it and I said, I've got a feeling I know you. And it turned out to be, of course, Mario. And you managed to meet up with the guys from Scotch for Dummies in New York at the weekend. I hope that was as special as it looked. I was very jealous to see all those really cool pictures. Now, just a heads up that Scotch for Dummies will not be going live tonight, I believe. I think they're in recuperation mode after their heavy, hectic weekend. But I do believe that Trenny and C are going live tonight, which will be 8 p.m. Pacific. Now, that's got to be something like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning for us Europeans. But if you're on US time, Trenny and C on Pacific time will be going live at 8 o'clock. Those guys are always a very good laugh. Orbisphere is in. That looks like a new name. And he's saying Highland Queen 1561, 30 or 40% is excellent. So there's a 40% ABV whiskey being enjoyed right now. Wonderful to welcome you all in. That's me a good few minutes into the stream, and they haven't achieved much already, but to welcome you. So this idea of ABV and whiskey is always something that's kind of grabbed my attention. When I first started to taste whiskey, I was dosing it heavily with water way back at the start because 40% ABV was strong. And as time went on, I just didn't bother with water. But then what happened is that when I picked up a 48%, a 50% or higher, it just didn't dawn on me that it was high ABV whiskey, and I labelled it as rough. I remember the very, very first bottle of Laphroaig Cartius that I ever bought. Cast strength, of course, special edition from Laphroaig. And I remember thinking, this is not what I expected. This is rough and hot and peppery. But of course, I was just too much of a noob. And I didn't have a mentor to kind of take me by the hand and say, well, the reason this is hot is because it's high ABV. This is a much more natural product, and it's there to give you the flexibility to bring it down to the level where you're enjoying it, or experiment with it, play with it, see what water does to it as you add drop by drop. Everyone to say in Aguavite, my first experience going to cask strength was comparing Redbreast 12 and the cask strength Redbreast 12. Excellent, everyone. What a richer experience with a little bit of water. Wonderful. It's an absolutely fantastic idea, a great way to do it. So you're sitting there with Redbreast, and I think that's 46%, I think, Redbreast 12. Naturally, so you've got their kind of standard expression where they feel it's optimal. And then you've gone out and you've bought the cask strength one. So you've been able to try a very, very similar, albeit these are vatted styles of whiskey, but a very similar profile, one at cask strength and one bottled as the distiller deems fit. Really good. Donald Rance is saying, is there a better demonstration than Redbreast 12 and Redbreast 12 cask strength? That's arguably absolutely spot on, Donald. It's a very good idea to do that. I did it with Aberlours, various Aberlours, comparing it against the Abuna. But of course, the Abuna is a different animal because it's exclusively Oloroso cask. Prestige Liquids is in. Fantastic to see you, Andrew. He's saying my first cask strength was the Glenlivet Nadura. Just wow, he's saying. You've written nature, that's probably autocorrect. I think you're meaning Nadura, which is obviously their cask strength expression. And yes, it can be a fine dram. They do quite a few different editions. Redbreast 12, 40%. Phil, thanks for that. Just let me know. That's the same as Green Spot then, 40%. And the low style then is maybe the one that's at 46, because Green Spot, of course, their Léoville Barton and their other one, Mantelena or something, were both presented at 46. So maybe the special edition ones are a wee bit higher ABV. Marcus is saying, my first experience was a cask strength was a Glenfarclas 105, jumping into the deep end with 60% ABV. And the first hit was strong, but I did like it after adding a bit of water even more. And isn't it amazing, Marcus, that over time, the water you can add less and less and get to the stage that you're just maybe adding a few drops or trying it completely neat and enjoying it. Your brain starts to get round that burn, that heat, that pepperiness, that spice of the alcohol, and it starts to be able to taste past that alcohol burn. Jason Fisk is in. Good to see you, Jason. He's saying, hi, Roy. Hi, all. Caskmate is saying, sipping Glenrothes 18, natural colour, 43%, so a 2.5 on your ABCD scale. Well, it's interesting that you say that, Caskmate, because in my glass right now, I have this Glenmorangie. Now, this is an old 80s, 90s bottling of Glenmorangie, and I chose to pour this tonight because this is a 40% ABV whiskey that I'm very much enjoying, and I think this would only score 1 out of 4 on my ABCD scale, because it has an age statement on there at 10 years old, but it's at 40% ABV, and it doesn't talk about natural colour, and it doesn't talk about whether it's been chill filtered or not. So from that, we assume potentially yes and yes. However, this is an example of its time. Now, yes, it's still 40% now, but Glenmorangie 10 has always been 40%. Glenlivet 12, okay, maybe before the days of age statement things when it was a pure malt, occasionally you could get it at export strength of 43%. But most of these whiskies, the original single malts, even Macallan and the Macallan 12, Lafroig 10, they would all be at 40%. They were launched at 40%, and that was strong enough. Occasionally you would see them at 43% for export. That was the way whiskey was sold. You've got to remember that single malts are very much following in the wake, it's following in the wake of blends. And the majority of blends were all the same, 40, 43% maximum. The idea of cask strength whiskey or higher ABV whiskies of 46, 48, 50%, that was the preserve of specialists, very niche product to a very niche market that was far less of a market than it is today. So, you know, although we are kind of constantly complaining and demanding a much more naturally presented product, we always have to remember that in the context of the history of whiskey, That's why there is so much product out there at 40% or 43%. And it still doesn't necessarily mean that it's not enjoyable. Convince me otherwise. That's kind of what the theme is tonight. So if you're sharing what you're drinking, let us know what ABV it is as well. Hoagie Bear is in. Hoagie, great to see you. He's saying, I have an old bottling of Glenmorangie 10, 43% ABV, maybe the 1 litre bottle for travel retail. Yeah, there was actually the Glenfiddich that I have, the Glenfiddich Pure Malt, is a 1 litre bottle, so perhaps that could have come from travel retail as well. There was a lot of that at the time. Far less likely to see 1 litre expressions of single malt at travel retail now, right? Malt Chronicles, Bart, good to see you. My friend is saying the older RM12 cask strength is still available here and there. It's a great comparison with the regular 10 and 14. Absolutely. Scott is saying, oh, he's asking Sevi what he's got in the glass. Okay. What else have I missed? And I would also like to point out and raise a glass and say thank you to the 2 donations that came in before I even went live, from my friend Caskmate and from my friend over in Texas, Robert Licorice from Iron Root Distillers. Thank you very, very much, guys. Before the doors even opened, you were sending across a wee virtual dram, and for that I'm very, very grateful. Apologies if I'm a little bit hoarse tonight. My children come home from the petri dish of a primary school with a sickness bug, and I'm really hoping that I'm not going to come down with it. But just as the night went on, I started to dry out a wee bit. But the doc is saying, he's saying, when I run my blind taste quizzes, my friends and I have a hard time guessing the ABV correctly, off in both directions by 10%. Sometimes 10% is quite narrow. I struggle too. And it's always dependent on what you're sipping in contrast with, and kind of just your mood, the condition, but also the style of whiskey, right? Donald is saying lot 40 and lot 40 cask strength would be a great comparison as well. I have the cask strength, although I don't have much of it left now. I shared quite a lot of that, but I've never tried the standard lot 40, Donald. So let me tell you about kind of the inspiration for this guest tonight that I have, and I can see them sitting there patiently waiting. They joined just after I went live. This is not a whiskey channel that's joining me. They are a YouTube channel, but they put out a whiskey video, and I was completely smitten by it. This kind of thing can only exist in YouTube. It's fantastic. So we've got 2 guys out in the States, a couple, Phil and Deepa, and they pick up. I've actually prepared a little slideshow that I can just, I don't want to, if you've not watched the video, I encourage you to watch the video after this live stream or whenever you've got 20, 25 minutes to watch it. I don't want to spoil it, but I've got some stills from the video just to give you an overview of the scope, so that when I introduce you to them as my guest tonight, you understand why they're here. But they were visiting Scotland. They picked up a single bottle of whiskey to enjoy while they were here. To quote their words, I think they said it triggered a curiosity. So back in the States, they took on board this project to go out and buy 24 bottles of whiskey and test them all to see how they compared against their experience with this Ardmore Legacy, which was the whiskey bottle they bought in Scotland. 24 bottles, but they tried them all blind, and they recorded their entire experience. We're talking about a 6-week-long project to sample blind on as level a playing field as they possibly could these 24 whiskies. Just amazing to see. No Nonsense Whiskey. Vin has just given me a dram. He said, thanks for the shout out, my man. Looking forward to the December content. I'm hoping that you can join and participate whenever possible. I heard, a little bird told me that you and I have been sent some parallel samples. And the samples that we've been sent, Vin, I've never ever tried before. So if you're hosting a live or anything like that and you want to sip these together, give me a shout. And thank you very much for the dram, my friend. Congratulations once more. The other cool thing that's very, very intriguing about this video is that these guys are absolute beginners. So it's kind of, for me watching it, was a bit like looking through a letterbox back to the start of my whiskey journey again. The way that they were kind of enthusiastically buying the whiskey and trying the whiskey and being struck to stop and pause and think about each whiskey and compare them. We all remember what that was like at the start. And we all remember what it was like, just this idea that whiskey wasn't just whiskey. And the more you tried, the more you realized that this was going to be an infinitely long journey, that everything that you tried could be different and surprise you each time. That came across in the video. But ABV also played a bit of a cameo role as well. Very interesting. And I'll get Phil and Deepa to talk about that tonight. So I'm hopefully, we haven't had a chance to do a tech check before I went live tonight. So I'm hoping that this works out okay as I try and bring them in and welcome them to the stream. Vin is saying that's a great idea. Let's do it. Excellent, Vin. Andrew's saying, when I first had Nadura, I felt I'd been punched in the throat. Right? And I thought to myself, why do I like this? I'm so glad that I grew to enjoy that bottle right down to the last drop. This is the problem. This is the thing, and this is what I want to talk about tonight, is that as we move towards those higher strength ABVs, are we in some way cancelling out all those wonderful experiences we had with the lighter ABVs? Casimir is saying, my first whiskey was Grant's Family Reserve, and the following was Ardbeg 10. That's kind of bookend whiskies right there, Casimir, right? Fantastic. Okay, let's see if I can get... No. I think Phil and Deepa are maybe having some connection problems tonight. They've popped back in again. You've appeared again, guys. I'm going to try and bring you guys in and see if how you guys are and if you're having an okay time. Just hit your unmute and hopefully I'll be able to hear.
Okay.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Roy. Thanks for inviting us along.
Fantastic. Good to see you. Are you having any technical difficulties? Are everything okay?
It was. I was just trying to unmute. I just refreshed it in case something was sticking. Seems to be okay.
Good. You're sounding ever so slightly quiet to me. Hopefully that the audio's okay out on the live. I'm not always aware of the differences there. And Steve A, hi Steve, is saying, hey, it works. So it looks like Dwayne is saying, hey Dwayne, good to see you and my friend. He's saying, welcome Phil and Deepa. Yes, welcome guys. It's fantastic to have you here. Before I go on, and I'm just going to go and show a little kind of slideshow just to give a synopsis of the video so that people can get some context. But why don't you introduce yourselves? Let us know where you're from and where you are in your whiskey journey. What brought you to make a 6-week-long video project?
Unemployment, I think. So my name's Phil McNally. This is Deepa Argawal. We are married. We've been married for 24 years. And where are you from? Where are you from?
From India, and I'm 50.
From India? And Deepa's 50 years old. Because she just had a birthday during our whiskey tasting. Some of you might see it. Obviously, you can probably tell I'm from the UK. Born in Northern Ireland, but I grew up mostly in England. And we met in college in London at art college. So Deepa's graphic design, and I was a furniture designer at that time. But we came out to the US 16 years ago now for working in the animated film industry. And we both had a long run at DreamWorks Animation. If you look closely enough, you can catch us in a few credits as they zoom by with 1,000 people.
So that's DreamWorks. That's the guys who do, I guess, Shrek and Kung Fu Panda and these kind of things.
Right. Yeah. So those movies, and we both had a great time there. And actually, there's my friend Stuart Campbell, Scottish guy, used to run the whiskey club and the whiskey bar down at DreamWorks.
I pass by every day.
We would walk by so often.
And you never tried it.
Drinking those $400 bottles of whiskey, you know, but we would go in occasionally and just see what they were doing, you know, have a bit of fun, have a little taste. So maybe Stuart has a little bit of credit in triggering a bit of interest and a few things, you know, built up. I'd have to say that the BBC 2-part documentary a couple of years ago we happened to catch also
Yes.
triggered sort of
Yes.
interest when we were back visiting our parents.
So you kind of had things out there on the periphery, kind of maybe piquing your curiosity.
Yeah.
But what was it that finally struck you? What bit you?
So not much left of our Ardmore legacy.
See, it's a precious bottle now, isn't it?
I did actually have to buy another one just so we can carry on comparing. But I think, funnily enough, it is sort of the Ardmore legacy because it was the first one that had a tiny bit of smoke in. That was the first one that kind of went, oh, wait, this isn't normal whiskey. Even though it was just a supermarket, you know, no age statement bottle.
Yeah.
And that's enough for us to be like, oh, this is better than the other things we tried, which we couldn't remember.
So that was the start. That was Genesis for you. Well, what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to try to click on to a little slideshow. And the reason for this is obviously, as I've already mentioned, just to give people context and let them have a quick synopsis of the video so they can see what we're discussing. Yeah. And I would like people to see this video. It is the product of endeavor for sure. So let's see if I can make this show on the broadcast and click on it. So I don't know if you can see that now, Phil.
Yeah, I can see the little thumbnail.
So this video opens with Phil discussing how while on a vacation and holiday in Scotland, he picked up this Ardmore Legacy, and they were enjoying it. And when they came back to the States, they were, and I think your words were, it triggered a curiosity, right? But what kind of trigger does this? They go to Total Wine, and they ram raid Total Wine, and they buy 24 bottles of single malt whiskey, right? And at this point, I think there's a guy in the video that says, hey guys, I want to go home with you, right?
That's pretty funny.
And I can understand the sentiment of that. So, and then Phil proceeds to decant a generous sample pour into these sample bottles in order for you to strip away all the marketing, all the kind of preconception, any pre-investment that you might have had in these. So you don't know the price, you don't know the ABV, you don't know the brand, the distillery, nothing. So
we're naive enough to not even know the marketing, you know.
Yes.
On the few names. So really, we were stripping away price. That was it.
Okay, so it was as simple as that back then. It was just a case of you stripping away price, that makes perfect sense. And this is why it's gold, because we get to see all of these dynamics from the perspective of an absolute newbie, right?
Right.
So then,
we were recording it for our own entertainment as much as knowing more experienced whiskey drinkers would hopefully find it entertaining, because we knew we were going to struggle and we only had one chance to experience that first contact, so we thought it would be fun to do.
It was, and what you've actually managed to capture there is gold. And I was serious when I said, you know, I almost wish that there was that I'd been filming myself way back at the start when I'd just started out my whiskey journey. You know, and I'm sitting there with the first ever bottle of kind of Glengoyne 10 and Macallan 12 and all those whiskies that I kind of started out with. And I'm sitting there kind of, you know, I would just love to see what my reaction was. And you've got that in video, right? And it's fantastic to see. So you decant all of these into sample bottles. And then what follows is amazing. What you do is you go through this 6-week-long program of your sampling and then resampling all of these whiskies and scoring them and making notes. So, you know, when we talk about keeping a whiskey notebook or a tasting book, you're making all of those little notes that people would do in a tasting book, but you're also recording it on video as you go as well, right?
And we were even like, so we had, our first pass on testing was just to pull 2 random bottles and just do an AB, which one do we like? And we were just trying to do this sort of, is it more smoky or more winey? Is it richer or is it simpler? And then we'd scribble down a few notes and we'd throw in some kind of score. And that was our initial pass. We'd draw a little graph that represented, well, it kind of went like this, pepper and
very much based on maybe the Diageo flavor map, right? It's rich and light.
Online that was the simplest way to categorize between, you know, rich or delicate, smoky or wine.
Understand.
A very basic.
And so easier to Express.
Yeah, easier for us to like smoke, no smoke. You know, rich or delicate. We could just about handle
Absolutely. Absolutely, I understand. And what that does is it gives you a visual refresher every time you pick up the sample to resample it again, right?
Yeah. We haven't noticed ABV though.
After, this is the really cool part. This is what happens next. This is where it gets quite riveting for me. Is that after you've done all these the sampling, you kind of, and it's almost like an awards ceremony, right, in style. You set up your whole, you take over your entire. Yes.
Deepa's lip reading, if people didn't know. So I'll just catch Deepa up as you're talking. Right, carry on.
Yes, I mean, she's hopefully, I don't know if she can even see what I'm saying. I'm not sure how she would go with my lip reading. She's got, what's that, a cochlear implant?
That's right. Yeah. So Deepa was born deaf and mostly lip reads.
Okay. Okay. Right. I'll try and keep the camera on me then when I'm speaking and try and speak as pronounced as I can in my Scottish accent. But what happens is this award ceremony, you go through all of these bottles and you award these a position based on how you've scored them from 24 down through first place. Now, I don't think I want to go much further than that. I don't think I want to kind of ruin the video any more than that, because it's pretty riveting watching. I don't want to let anybody know what wins it. Although, yeah, there's one that I want to share with you potentially. You can choose whether we sip it or not, but we don't want to say where it ends up. Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Given the theme tonight, given that you're beginners, given that you were buying obviously standard core range available on a free open shelf, very little in the way of kind of special editions or anything, but how much did the ABV play a part? Because the Ardmore Legacy that you have is what, 43%, I think?
Not even, it's a 40.
Ah, you bought it in the UK as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
So, okay, 40%. So talk to me about that. How were you challenged by ABV? Yeah,
with ABV, we were aware of it. We'd watched enough videos to know that Abona, Abelard was a cask strength. So I was aware of it, but it was the only one that we had at 60% as good as. And so I knew if I wrote 60% on the label, I'd know what it was. So I did question what we should do. But yeah, you didn't know anything about ABV, but have a higher tolerance for alcohol than me, apparently, because I seem to get burnt even at 40 at this point. So I did elect to just do it blind and thinking that we'll be adding water and we'll understand it, but we didn't, because we couldn't separate what was a genuine peppery flavor from an alcohol burn. And the fact that it was immediately peppery we didn't know enough to think, oh, that's probably alcohol and not actual flavor, which would probably come a bit later. So we did get thrown, and there was that one day where it was Abelard that did the damage. That I had drunk quite a bit of it trying to get through the pepper, and I got immediately burnt to the point that I couldn't taste anything else anymore without everything being the same, even to the next day. So I was, yeah,
you told me that you were affected by that so much that, and probably that made you a little bit, if you're still feeling that alcohol burn the next day, that probably made you a little bit nervous about the next few steps, right? How it was going to be affected.
Definitely, but I was genuinely thinking that at first I was thinking, no, it's just pepper flavor. It's a peppery whiskey, and so I was trying more, but it completely threw me. But you never got burnt by the alcohol.
Only when we came to the epilogue.
Only when we came to the epilogue, when we
put water and I burned them out. I thought, oh, then that's the first time.
But I did start to suspect, because of the burnt sensations, like, okay, this isn't flavor, this is something that's happened. So we actually tried to revisit at that point and step back and started to add water to them as we continued into the next round of testing. Because we actually tested multiple ways. We random paired them and gave them a score. And then we got all the low scores grouped together, and then the mediums, and we sort of recalibrated. And then we had a third pass where we just said, well, these should be the bottom. And we took 4 bottom ones, And the two that were the least enjoyable, we left there, and the next two kind of graduated up a league. And we shuffled them all the way back through. So that's why it took so long. But we were doing better at the end, but still we didn't catch Abelauer at 60%, and it got stuck.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's you know, the cask strength whiskies are something. It's like a language that you're only permitted to learn step by step.
Yeah.
I don't think many people can come into drinking 60% ABV spirit and enjoy it neat from the get-go. I think you do need a bit of conditioning, but it's quite amazing. Over my shoulder here, I've got on the floor here from last week, I brought it up again. I've got a 65% SMWS Highland Park. And I was looking through the collection, and this is the one I discovered is the highest strength Scotch that I have. This is a 66.8% ABV Glenrothes single cask.
Right.
But there are bourbons out there that are even higher than that. I've got Elijah Craig barrel proof downstairs, nudging on for 70%, and some of those editions have actually been released at 70%. But what's incredible...
A quick tech question then. How does it get to that strength? I'm thinking of the quiz. Doesn't it go into the barrel at a lower proof than that, or is this a special case?
Well, I don't think we're spoiling any questions in the quiz tonight, but it's you know, water and alcohol evaporate at different rates.
Yeah. Okay.
So you've got the climate and Bourbon County in Kentucky there, for example, that they have a lot of water evaporation.
I see.
So the alcohol strength can increase
in the barrel
really quite quickly, whereas Scotland is really cold, as you know. And that cool, damp climate tends to be the issue that the alcohol is going to evaporate. So what happens with Scotch is that it's a much more stable condition, but they can lose up to 2% a year, they say, or that's certainly the permissible amount from a tax perspective. So an average of 2% per year is allowed for, but the fill strength is typically 63.5%, and you can have let's say you can have a 10-year-old cask strength easily in the high 50s, even sometimes knocking on for 60% ABV. I've actually got a bottle here. I'm really curious to try this. Whiskey Apocalypse John actually let me try a little sip of this, but this is New Make Spirit from Clydeside Distillery. And I picked this up this week. I went in there to buy a bottle of something else, and I got this from them. 63.5%. This is at fill strength. I'm curious to see how this is going to be. But I just want to mention Kieran May has bought me another virtual dram. He said, "Hello, mate. Dram on me as ever. Thank you very much, Kieran. You're a star." He said, "Say hi to the guests, please, for me." We have a wonderful, welcoming community here, guys, and I think a lot of them will have seen your video. If any of you have seen the video by Phil and Deepa and you want to ask them any questions about it, please make sure you copy Jason Whiskey Wise or the Whiskey Rev, and those guys are sending me direct messages through. Whiskey Obsessed is saying, Aquavita, just noticed the Springbank Local Barley 10 in the background. Just opened mine. Very curious to hear what you think of it, and how hard was it for you to get? It was impossible for me to get this. It was Kilted Moose. Scott Monroe picked this up for me. He was passing a specialist store in Glasgow out in the West End, and he found this and one other bottle for the Alchemist, and he grabbed this for us. But this isn't the 10-year-old. The 10-year-old was out at the end of last year. This is the 9-year-old, which is a brand new version, and you can see that I haven't opened this one yet. I'm excited to do so, though, because of how much I love that spiced butter of last year's 10-year-old. Both of these, incidentally, these are cask strength whiskies. This one's at 57.7%. So like I say, if you've got questions about the video for Phil and Deepa, please copy Jason Whiskey Wise and the Whiskey Rev, and hopefully I'll be able to pick up the questions and ask them. So did you struggle? I'm going to pour this new make because I'd just be interested. I'm super interested to see how this is tasting. Just to give you some context here, guys, this is being produced in a Glasgow distillery, and it's the second distillery to open in Glasgow recently. Glasgow distillery is out on the west side in Hillington, and this one, the Clydeside distillery, is on the riverside. And I'm really excited about the idea, you know, that Glasgow distilling is back again. So I wish I could share this with you, but you're rather a distance away from me. So you'll just need to go on what I'm saying about it, I guess. But you can see immediately. I mean, just that's how clear whiskey is when it's new, right?
Yeah, amazing.
It's water. So, in theory, all the color should come from the wood. So yes, Gregor is saying, Gregor, that's Gregor McQueen. He must have watched the video. Gregor is saying, thanks to Phil and Deepa, went on and watched once Roy mentioned the guys should do a 1-year follow-up to see how they've developed, changed. That's exactly what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
We've got this kind of thing where you've gone in with your concrete wellies here. You've jumped in and there's no sign of you coming up for air, right? You seem to be really, really enjoying it. And that's going to be quite compelling for us whiskey heads who are already a little bit further down the road to witness that vicariously, right?
Yeah, I think that will definitely be fun to revisit, like after 1 year. Actually, Food Quick commented on the video this morning, I think, saying it'd be great to come back in 5 years. So it's the same idea. We like that idea, and we will, because we've shot a lot of footage of us testing and tasting the different ones, and we've done one follow-up with the Lefroy and Ardbegs, but we do plan to kind of do follow-ups to it where we can probably cut back even over the next few months. But yeah, it would be great to come back.
Yeah, you're going to be scrubbing through that footage for many, many months to come, right?
Yeah, I think we shot 14 hours of footage total. Had to wade through.
Oliver is asking, Oliver Trawavis is asking, if you did it again, would you change? What would you change? And would you think the rankings would change, palette shifts, etc.? Have you already worked out what you would change if you could shoot it again?
Yeah, what would we do differently? I think what we tried to do it in the middle after we sort of caught on to the high ABV, and we thought what we should have done on the first pass was establish whether we preferred it with water or without water, just as a baseline for each one, so that every time we had come back, we would have a note that would say, oh yeah, add 10% water or 20% or something. And we did try to do it, but I think it did help in the second pass. But so like a little glimpse into the future, we have got a bit carried away on shopping, as you warned me would happen. And as bottles have come in, I'm lining up for more mystery drinks in the future. But I have taken the precaution of anything that's over 50 does have a hot mark on the top. So at the very least, we know a starting point.
So there you go, Oliver. Not only has he already decided what he would change, but the changes have been implemented, ready for round 2. Jason from the Mash and Drum has just sent along a virtual dram as well, saying Phil and Deepa are wonderful guests. Always great to experience whiskey journeys. Slancha. Thank you very much, Jason from Mash and Drum. That's another channel, by the way, Phil and Deepa. I don't know if you've caught Jason. He's in the States doing mostly bourbon, but he's also got some Scotch content out there. And what I love about watching Jason's channel is when he's drinking Scotch, we get to see the guy taking his first steps and exploring Scotch, and we get to see his reactions on screen. So thank you very much, Jason.
Lagavulin whiskey video, I think. Is that the right one? The first taste of Lagavulin.
Lagavulin 8-year-old, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And you can see him just stopping, pausing, and then just going, wow. I would say that was one of the most charming and endearing things about your video, because we've got Deepa there. A lot of the time you're just talking to camera, right? And then Deepa just interrupts and just goes, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just like downs the whole glass. And I'm like, oh, what happened?
Yeah. She's one to watch, right, when you're drinking with her.
Yeah.
You take a sip and then the next thing you get an empty glass back. I didn't notice.
Yeah, lots of interrupting. But I mean, it is part of the fun as well for us to, to share, a kind of hobby project. I mean, we're both artists, but it's also sort of part art project for me to make the video and do all those things, of course. But it's also something that we've really enjoyed, just sitting down at night and pouring something and revisiting and just sitting and talking through. It's been really enjoyable.
Well, I do not expect that in the medium. Oh gosh, for me,
yeah, didn't expect it to become a longer journey.
You get more effort.
Get more involved.
That's curious because that's something that we know. So the guys that have got a kind of more of an experienced whiskey journey behind them, we're watching you going, these guys are hooked. Whether they find it or not, they're hooked.
I know. I like to actually stay naive in these types of explorations. I purposely try not to see too much because I really enjoy the fact of stumbling into things and discovering it for myself.
Yes.
Even though, you know, I like reinventing the wheel because I'm personally interested in that. So I'm sure that everyone in the comments has got so many things that they would want to say that you're missing so much, or wait till you get to this, or wait till you get to that.
But don't worry. No.
Now we like, oh gosh.
Yeah, and that's right. And that's kind of, it's another cool thing that you did actually, because after you'd given your points out, after you'd placed them and told us where everything was, you went back again in your epilogue and you tested some of the ones that you felt might have kind of blindsided you a little bit, and you gave some of them a second chance. And a lot of these, and that's what we all understand very, very quickly in whiskey, that depending on what you're sipping in contrast with what, and what environment, under what mood and conditions, that when you go back to a whiskey afterwards, your opinion of it can be dramatically different. So you included that in the epilogue, right?
Yeah, because we knew that once we unveiled them, the main one that caused that was, of course, the Abuna, because of the 2%. And I said we're going to have to revisit that. And so I thought, well, let's revisit in the epilogue. Then I gave Deepa a little blind test just to see. And actually, what we have right now in these two, and you can tell how much water I've put into the other hour. And this is the Auchentoshan.
But I'm from the family. About that,
About Talisker.
I give you the best stuff. When a couple of weeks ago, I thought it's not that good.
Yeah, Deepa was trying the Talisker and going like, maybe this isn't as good as I thought it was. Now that we've spent more time with like other things, it is funny.
Well, I always say in whiskey, you know, never ever say I don't like, because whiskey always kind of teaches you that you're not always sure what you like and what you don't like. Sometimes you just haven't invested enough in something, right? Yeah. And I would say that it's also true the other way around, that some things that you really, really love, you can find yourself a little bit down the road and you're wondering why it struck you so much. So it does wax and wane a little bit, right?
And I think that's what happened with the Auchentoshan, because we had sort of overindulged in, you know, the equivalent of chocolate cake. You know, it's like the sweet things like you can see the Glendronach 12 has gone down.
Oh, so that's a favorite.
But of course, it is like walking into a buffet and going straight to the desserts and eating your way through a whole bunch of, you know, donuts and cakes, and then you come back the next day and you think, oh, maybe I'll just have some kind of savory salad, pasta or something. And so one night we came back to the Auchentoshan after, you know, having too much on that side of it. We're like, well, this is really good tonight. What happened?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the thing, is that I think that whiskey, everything, all these lessons that you're learning as you drink the whiskey can apply to real life scenarios, right? It can apply to food, it can apply to social situations and meeting people, it can apply to just being out in the world and in the environment. That what whiskey is teaching you about kind of opening it up your mind a little bit and understanding the context of things can apply everywhere, right? Certainly that's how it's kind of strikes me sometimes. So there's a good question come in from Barton Holling. Good to have you in, Barton. That's a new name to me. Welcome in. He's saying, would like to know what's on Phil and Deepa's list for the next 24 bottle trip to Total Wine. Now, I already know that you've got a couple on the go, but have you any idea?
I brought up some cartons. Well, of course, just for you, Roy.
Yes.
I had to hunt out the white label, which was a little harder to do in the US because I guess they have some of the older ones still in stock. I think this was another one of Ralph, certainly.
It's a very good one.
This was still on the shelf in Total Wine. It was $99 here before tax, so about 100 and something. So pretty good price from what I could tell.
Absolutely, and becoming much more difficult to get a hold of now. There's still some of them around there in the UK and things. I think you've probably got more stock of that in the States than we have.
Right. We're indulging in some higher level things for us.
Very, very nice. Fantastic.
The 15 is
you're fast tracking now. You're fast tracking, right?
Well, fast tracking, but bear in mind they all look like this. So
okay.
Apart from knowing that it can't be this one, it's still going to be pretty vague. What else did we? Yes, this is like.
Wow. Wow.
We've gone too far, and then we're trying a couple. There's a really good store here called K&L that has quite a few.
Yes, they do. So they do some specific special store picked type bottling.
Yeah, right? They have their own.
But both of those will be round about the 50% ABV, right?
These are, yes, 49.7 and 50 for the
usually old malt cask is 50 on the nose, right? So yeah. That's excellent. So you've already, I mean, this is everybody's witnessing just how much you've been bitten by this. You're jumping in with both feet there. You've been doing your research. You're trying to figure out where the next kind of epiphanies and experience are going to be, and that's what you're going out there and sourcing now. Quite amazing.
Just to jump back a little bit, which is partly the setup of why we did it, is we're actually kind of fitness marathon runner type people, and I kind of laughed when I saw Ralphie's other channel about fitness, because I was like, we're sort of the opposite. We've been fitness for 20, 30 years. It's about time we did a bit more alcohol. But we did come from the point of view of we want to have a limited alcohol budget, because ultimately it's detrimental to health in excess, of course. But we also wanted to maximize our enjoyment. And we've always lived super frugal and saved carefully and lived below our means and all that type of thing. And we
never whiskey bottle.
And we wouldn't buy whiskey in the past, but we'd got to the point where we started to give ourselves luxury money each month, which would go into an account. But we were so kind of cheapskate living that we never had spent it. And so this was kind of like, finally, something that we can use our luxury money that we've been cheapskates for so many years. And so although this, I'm sure it doesn't look extravagant to everyone who's on the channel tonight, because they're probably
I don't think any of the whiskies that you've gone out and bought are specifically collectors' whiskies. Or you're buying whiskies to drink, and obviously what you're doing is different from probably most of us would have done it. There are a few guys that I know that do tend to just kind of get bitten by this, and they buy and buy and buy a lot. But you guys are very much buying these whiskies to drink, and that's compelling.
Yeah.
What you've mentioned there as well is kind of, as we come into this this discussion of ABV, and you're talking about the fitness, and you're talking about the idea of if you're going to drink something that's alcohol, which is in essence a poison, right?
Yeah.
you're gonna have to think carefully about how to do it. And I often speak about this, that I remember the looks that my friends gave me when I started to drink whiskey, which they perceived to be very high ABV. And then some of these whiskies were indeed very, very high ABV, 57%, 60%. And when I explained to them, I said, there is no way you can abuse this liquid, because it is so powerful. The ABV is so high that it forces you to slow down, to take your time. And that forces you to have a different relationship with alcohol. That's certainly how it was for me.
Yeah. It's like having very strong bitter chocolate or something. You can't eat 10 bars of it because you just get sick. But, but then it all comes down to tasting every part of every sip, which makes the difference.
Yeah.
Somebody's about the experience, right?
Colourless Blue Things has just mentioned, somebody warn them before they try the Glendronach 18. They'll never have better. Save it for slightly later in the journey.
Yeah.
I know where Colourless Blue Things is coming from. That is probably one of the extreme bookends of its style, and it's probably a perfect bottling and age right now. The liquid that's in that bottle is likely to be much older than 18 years as well.
Yeah,
if you could go back to the early days of discovery when everything was new, exciting, not to mention much cheaper, well, absolutely. I think that's what I'm enjoying about Phil and Deepa's video and their journey so much, Gus, because there is the vicarious thing happening there. And I'm almost jealous of them that so many of their experiences, the little kind of epiphanies and mini epiphanies that they're going to have, are past me now. And that's kind of what whiskey's all about. And I did a live stream a few weeks back where we become obsessed a wee bit with chasing whiskey. We're trying to chase that next epiphany, that next experience where you just stop and stare at what's in the glass. And you're just kind of amazed. It's just absolutely never ceases to amaze me, the endless amount of flavor that can come from barley and water that's aged in wood, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, actually, I think I do have a question in, because I've gone back and forwards on this a few times. Because I initially said to Deepa, we should limit ourselves to the simpler whiskies and build up slowly. So maybe stay around the 12-year mark or something like that. And then over time, sort of open the door slowly to like 15s to the 18s. And I was unsure whether to do that or not. And that's why we haven't drunk any of these yet. They are on hold. So what do people think? For them looking back, do they think it would be better to hold off on some of the better ones until we're more able to appreciate them?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of ever so slightly hooked into the theme that I was talking about, that when you move to single cask strength, high ABV whiskies, that always to carry a torch for the ones that kind of brought you along your journey, not to kind of forget about them or invalidate the experiences that you had with those, and kind of give yourself a bit of a break, refresh, because at some point in the future, hopefully if you've had enough of a break away from whiskey, you'll be able to go back to it again and get perhaps a bit more flavor in there than you would normally if you're used to drinking higher ABVs, and then you suddenly go back to 40%. What I'd like to do actually is just bring up Eric Waite's comment, because it was quite insightful, and he talked about music and that kind of listening to music in the car thing. So if I grab Eric's comment and just read it out quickly, because that was kind of the inspiration for me theming the show tonight based on that. And because I'm running video, everything's running a wee bit slow, but I'm here. We've got Eric's comment coming up now. Yeah, and he said, let me bring it over. This is quite interesting. He's saying when he first came into whiskey, he was sampling drams at 40 to 43% ABV and found no lack of intensity or flavour. Now he finds many of them lacking something, of course. But what changed, he's asking, me, himself, or the whiskies? The truth is, I have become accustomed to tasting higher ABV whiskies and cask strength whiskies. We all do, Eric. Now, much like teenagers who get used to listening to very loud music, such that when an adult comes along and says, turn that down, they reply, you're such a grandpa. I'm wondering how many of us, if we stopped drinking whiskey for a few months and then returned to a 40% ABV whiskey, would find it to be just fine and not lacking anything. Years ago, when he was on a long road trip, he's talking about how he would gradually turn up the volume on the radio in order to compete with the road noise on the freeway, right? We all understand what that is. And then as soon as he gets back in the car again, he switches on the radio and he's shocked at how loud the music is. Now, I find that very, very interesting. And what you have, you guys, there is you have the ability to walk along this journey, knowing that that's very firmly a dynamic, right?
Yeah, I mean that is a great quote. And I was comparing in my mind. I was thinking that ABV was maybe a bit like fitness. We've done our running thing, and certainly you can train your way up and gradually increase your speed and distance and everything.
Yeah.
You take a break and you try and hit that speed again. It is a big shock. It takes some time to adapt to anything, and I guess something in your tongue adapts. Your ability to tolerate. Same thing, sugar or salt. If you start cutting it back in the food you eat, and then you have something at a restaurant which is fully salted again, it can be quite shocking, the difference. So
that's exactly right. It's a very, very good analogy. And I think that, what's compelling about you guys is that you're kind of, there's lots of channels out there that we've been able to witness various styles of whiskey journey. You know, Vin, No Nonsense Whiskey in the UK, he's very much like that. The Scotch Test Dummies, if you watch Scott and Bart as well, if you go back to their first ever video and watch that, and then watch a recent video from them, what you get to witness is that journey happening. But it happened kind of very, very, not even baby steps. It was a very, very gradual journey for those guys. And but you guys...
Sorry, Roy, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, for you guys, it's kind of like you are jumping in with both feet. And what I'll liken it to is when the Whiskey Rev and I used to drink whiskey together on a Wednesday night, I would be buying all the 10-year-olds, the 12-year-olds, the 15-year-olds, right? I'd be buying all the kind of foundation bottles and trying as many as I could. For me, it was to be as granular as I could and understanding the foundation of all of these distilleries and expressions. The Whiskey Rev was buying maybe one bottle a month or two bottles a month at the most, right? Yeah. But he was researching and spending time. So what's happened is that, yes, we got to try all of these great whiskies because of my buying habits, but the best and the most memorable whiskies were provided by him. Because he was buying like that old Pulteney 17-year-old that you held up there, Glendronach 15, the first time he brought around a revival and things, and you know, all of these kind of epiphany style whiskies, the majority of them would have, not all of them, I have to say, Rev, not all of them, because I know he's in here tonight, but the majority of them were provided by him. So what I would say is that it is good if you could strike that balance going forward to keep firmly rooted and the kind of experiences that you can have with 10, 12, 14-year-old whiskies and not be tempted to buy $100 bottles and above all the time, right?
Yeah. Right, I've got an idea. Maybe we keep some of the ones like this out of, you know, we keep them knowing what they are. And we have our fun with blind testing and tasting, whatever. But when we want to drink this for like 2 weeks before, we slowly take our level down to simpler, lighter, like in movie making, you always set up the loud explosion with quieter and quieter moments. So, you know, we taper our way down so that, you know, we're just drinking Auchentoshan 12 for a week before we open this one.
Oh, damn it, fuck that.
And then really set it up for full impact or something like that might be fun as well.
Yeah, I think anything is going to be fun because I don't think you need to design it to taste the contrast in that old Pulteney 17, the richness and the complexity of that old Pulteney 17, and the sheer kind of heavy, rich, dark fruits of that Glendronach 18. There's nothing that you need to do in order to that's going to bring the contrast anyway. Yeah. But certainly it might be unfair to put whiskies like that 17-year-old and the 18-year-old in amongst kind of 10 and 12-year-old in a blind lineup. But then again, it might be very, very interesting for you to do it from a beginner's perspective and also just to test. Are they really that good? Just by me and the audience, you know, the guys in the lounge here tonight telling you it's that good. No, it's got to be good to you.
Yeah, and we had a cheat test of Old Pulteney 17 because we really wanted to try it. But we did do a side by side with the 12, and you know, we could really enjoy the extra things that were going on. We didn't understand them fully, but it was definitely like, okay, wait, got to slow down here. But we didn't want to drink too much before because we weren't capturing it on video or anything.
I think one of the interesting things, to go back to the theme of ABV again, would be that your old Pulteney 12 is going to be 43 or 40% with you, right? I don't know which.
3 here, I think.
But it's 46 in the 17. But I swear, it tastes like the 17-year-old is softer.
Yeah, the 12 is a 40 that we have.
Yeah, so despite it being 6% higher ABV, because of the extra age, the maturity of the spirit and the wood, I think that you benefit from that, and it really rounds it out. For instance, I'm sipping this. I've just finished this New Make Spirit. I thought it was very, very enjoyable. I do enjoy sipping New Make Spirit from time to time. It's really interesting to do it. This was super, super malty. You know, I could literally taste, I can still taste in my mouth barley like I've been chewing barley. It was also quite spirity. of course, it's New Make Spirit, but what I mean is it's very alcoholic and alcohol driven. There was some sugar in there. There was a kind of like a berry note, like a blueberry, sweet blueberry note, and there was a little bit of creaminess, almost like you could convince yourself that it was a bit kind of like yogurt or something. But what I'm feeling from this, I feel a little bit flushed from this. I feel affected by this, which is really interesting because I didn't have much of it, and it might be the way I am tonight. But I wonder if, regardless of how you measure the alcohol, I wonder if, you know, having it in wood makes it a little bit more palatable to your chemistry, to your body. It makes it more easy to enjoy higher ABV spirits when they've been matured in wood. It would be interesting to get some input on that. Have you tried any New Make Spirit yet? You won't have, right?
Never tried it. I mean, I was just talking about being flushed. There is that a lot of Asians have the Asian gene that doesn't tolerate alcohol, and they do get flushed drinking even low levels of alcohol. Some friends here have that, and so they just can't drink without really going red. So maybe
sometimes it happens to me quite quickly, and I just need to sit with water and slow down a wee bit. But I certainly had plenty to eat tonight. I've had lots to eat. I'm drinking lots and lots of water on the side here. But just perhaps the way that, and just the fact that it's New Make Spirit. But you will be able to buy White Dog and things out there in the States quite easily, I think, most of the bourbon producers, right?
Yeah.
It'd be an interesting thing for you to do again as a newbie. Listen, guys, I'm wondering how you feel about hanging around. I don't know if you've got commitments or if you're on a curfew or whatever.
We're committed to these three, certainly.
So you're here for the duration then, right?
Yeah.
Not even 3 in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's right. It's only 2:52 in the afternoon here. Plenty of time.
Fantastic. Let's see if we've got any comments coming in. Then Tom Harris said, older is not better. It's just different. They should try a mix, not to find out if they think the older bottles really are more to their liking. So Tom Harris saying, don't hold off on the things that are older, a bit more expensive, but throw them in there and just see how they contrast. He's got a pretty good point. Welsh Torres saying we are getting into age is better. Isn't necessarily so. I'm loving some 10 and 12-year stuff recently. I also believe, Welsh, that the more you go on in your whiskey journey, you can actually start to appreciate some of the things that would have passed you by with the 10-year-old and 12-year-old stuff when you were first sipping it. But I agree with you fully, Welsh. And Gregor is saying, presumably there is no hard and fast rules with ABV enjoyment guarantee, just as some 12, 15-year-old are better than their elder, stronger cousins. Yeah, it's crazy how it all manifests, you know, just how, you know, like I said, you know, when you're sipping Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, it's close to 70% ABV, and yet I can sit and enjoy that. Okay, it takes me a long time to get through it, CBP, something you rushed, right? But you can literally sit there and just enjoy it sip by sip. And I think you said, Phil, when we were speaking last night, that the tinier sips that you take with the higher ABV product, you're diluting it in your mouth.
I think so. I mean, it makes sense that is happening, you know, as you produce more saliva to counteract that strong alcohol.
And it's kind of something the alcohol teaches you to do. It's not something that you have to be taught. It's so high power that you do have to take little half sips, right?
Yeah, me especially.
James Allsop is saying, question for Phil and Deepa. Have you looked and tried any bottles from independent bottlers, sort of relevant with the theme of higher ABV too? So I guess that I'm not letting any cats out of bags, James, when I tell you that the video that they've just released recently, the 24 bottles, none of them were independents, but you've shared the old malt cask bottlings tonight, right?
Yeah, so we've picked up a couple since. Actually, one fell off. It's a 21-year Ardmore, and also a Longmorn. So these are both at 50%. So we are looking. Actually, I had to send my friend Stuart down at DreamWorks, asking him, you know, for a few tips. But that is the intention, to look for a few more of those that will be a bit more diverse flavors.
Razvan is saying, Razvan has said, step by step, enjoy the journey and learn from every whiskey that you try. We learn with every dram that we taste. I really like the idea of unbranding the whiskey to try it the way you tried it. Absolutely. And what we've got is that kind of double whammy there. We've got the whiskey stripped of its branding, but also you guys coming in completely without any kind of preconceived ideas. You are really noobs based from that kind of branding perspective, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I don't think the branding doesn't help the flavor, right? But obviously, having some appreciation of how to enjoy the flavor is important, whether that be adding water to something that's very strong, or whether you should leave it in the glass, you know, for 15 minutes before you drink it and things like that. So there's certainly been an education from videos like yourself and, you know, Ralphie, obviously everyone knows, of learning how to appreciate it, because some of the problem is with us, not with the whiskey, and then sometimes the problem is with the whiskey, not with us, right? So we want to eliminate our problems so that we can fairly say whether we have a problem or not with the whiskey itself. So we have tried to educate ourselves, and I did a little blind test on Deepa actually with I can't even remember which one it was. No, I brought up three glasses of the same whiskey, which was 48%, something like that. And I poured one and left it for 15 minutes. At the same time, I poured another, left it for 15 minutes, but added water right at the start. This one, I added water at the end of the 15 minutes. And then I poured a new one, added water immediately, and put them all on the table.
And at that, three things. And they are very different.
They were all very different.
Whiskies.
Yeah, Deepa was like scoring them. You really thought they were different whiskies.
Whiskey.
And saying, oh yeah, this one is much better. This one, this one is, yeah, but you were saying this one's like kind of bitter, but the one that had sat, the two that had sat in the glass were definitely scoring like, oh yeah, this is much more enjoyable. It's, you know, smoother and more complex.
It's one of the best fun things to do, and it doesn't make sense.
Whiskey. Yeah, Deepa was horrified. They were all the same. Although after 10 minutes, it got slightly more confusing because she was like, this one doesn't seem as bad now, because it had now sat in the glass for 10 minutes. They were becoming more equal.
But it's difficult to try and explain away why that can be, why that happens. But anybody that's kind of been obsessive like I have and sat in the house and played these silly little games with yourself, you wonder sometimes if you're convincing yourself. But then when you get an opportunity to do that blind,
yeah,
you can taste a difference. Now then somebody tells you, oh, it's the same whiskey, and you feel a little bit kind of crestfallen, you feel let down, but it doesn't invalidate the fact that you did in fact taste a discernible difference.
We had a very particular case with Glenfarclas 12 that we really struggled with on almost every test, that we liked part of it and then we didn't like the next bit, and then it was like, we were always like, oh no, not quite. And we kept going back to it because there's actually only this much, much left in here. We kept going back saying, no, let's try it again. And we couldn't really get it to work. And one day we were going out to friends for Thanksgiving here. We decided to make some mince pies for them, you know, British sweet tart mince pies. We thought, okay, some Glenfarclas is going into these mince pies. Because we just didn't enjoy it. But I had poured a glass of it, about this much, and it sat there for almost 45 minutes because we were just busy. And when we tasted it, we were like, it's like so much better than we had ever tasted it before. So now we're fans of Glenfarclas enough that at least we've picked up a mini of the 15 to give us a try before we buy another bottle.
Wow, fantastic.
But we will return to Glenfarclas, and you know, not beyond. I think it was after one of Ralphie's videos also about leaving it in the glass. So I did one day just pour a glass, and it'd come up after an hour, take a sip, go away. Another hour later, take another sip, just to see what's happening.
Yeah, and probably happening with you as well, because every time you take a sip, you're changing the condition of your palate as well. And another variable that I'll bring in, especially when you talk about Glenfarclas there, is that I tend to find, this is a general thing in whiskey, you know, whiskey does wax and wane. It's very, very difficult to keep a single malt whiskey, pot still produced product, consistent batch to batch, right? But I find that Glenfarclas is one of those distilleries that it's almost like they embrace the fact that there will be inconsistencies over the bottlings, right?
And I got a sense of that. So luckily there is a local bar here called the Broken Record, which is so like a bit of a dive bar, but with this great selection of whiskey. So we do have a chance to run up there and, you know, test a few. Although we will have to take our own glass because they have very thick, heavy shot glasses.
Ah, okay. They don't have the right glasses in yet. So you can teach them on that, guys. Listen, I'm going to do a wee bit of an uncorking here. What do you think? Do you have any of this still around?
It is here.
Excellent, excellent. Now, I was curious to find this in your lineup because this isn't the standard Talisker. This is when they take the 10-year-old, I guess, and they age it for a little bit longer in sherry casks, Amoroso sherry casks. Now, I tried this years ago, and it's not memorable to me. But this has been in my collection.
2017 on this one.
2007, 2017. There, I saw that. This is the 2005, 2015. So okay. It's just slightly older. So we are sipping a different batch. But what I thought, this would be an appropriate dram, I think, to share. This has been sealed in my collection for far too long. And I can't think of a...
Yeah, this was poured a little earlier, so ours has sat in the glass for 20 minutes.
Is that a Talisker Distillers Edition you have there?
Yeah, I poured it when Deepa ran off. I'd left it downstairs. She brought the bottle up and I poured it.
Okay, well let's celebrate your 6-week-long project by uncorking. Let's get a clean glass. This Talisker. Like I said, I think I bought this in 2015. That's how long this has been sealed, and I don't know why I kept it. I think because I had other Taliskers on the go, and I didn't feel the need to open it. But this will be the only Talisker I have open now, I think.
What do you think? How does it smell? Subtle peat. People were expecting more.
Metal.
Slightly metal. Now ours has probably evaporated the peat a little bit from sitting.
Well, I think one of the big questions that a lot of people are going to have, guys, is that do you intend to continue to document your whiskey journey, to make more YouTube videos, to do these little kind of tests and challenges for yourselves, or was it just a kind of a flash type thing? How do you feel right now?
Intend to keep making videos and drinking more whiskey? Yes, why not? So, I mean, I'm definitely not done with this project by a long way. So I suspect it will be quite a long time before we've exhausted our enthusiasm for shooting some videos and putting them up. My parents are coming to visit. Now I'm going to get them involved. Oh. My dad is
involved.
I think my brother bought him a bottle of Monkey Shoulder, and he went out and bought himself a bottle of Bell's. So we'll have to work on my dad.
You will come bring me about it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to read out a couple of comments, jump into the crowd for a little bit, and then come back to you guys once this Talisker's been in the glass for a little bit. iLaddie is saying, the most amazing drams can be as young as 5 years old. Independent bottling of a Lafroig he had was totally amazing. I agree completely with that, iLaddie. It's true that sometimes you're surprised how engaging a whiskey can be at a younger age. Lagavulin 8, for example, and I've heard lots and lots about this Talisker 8 that I've bought recently, and I'm looking forward to trying. And even younger than that, Whiskey Throttle is saying, will they try some Indian whiskey? Amrut, Paul John, Rampur, for example. Have you tried any world whiskies yet?
Yeah, I was worried about, well, if we go Indian, does that mean we go Japanese, Irish, American?
No, Indian.
That would be a yes. We do have to get a bottle of Indian whiskey. Although it's pretty expensive, I was surprised. The prices. Yeah, Amrut or what was the other one you mentioned? Yeah, there's a 3 or.
Have you tried any of them?
Have you tried them?
Yes, now that the word's out there that the Indian whiskey can be really quite spectacular. Paul John, Amrut. I don't recall having tried a Rampur, if I'm honest. But yes, I would encourage you to try them. But I understand where you're coming from, Phil, where you don't want to overcomplicate and over-granularize what you're already doing. There's already plenty to be getting on with in Scotch. And it's almost like if you do look at Indian whiskies or world whiskies, it might be worth exploring them in their individual categories before you start mixing it up, right? But what I don't know if you're aware of the blind challenges that I do, that I send out.
Yeah, I've seen some of them.
So what I do in there is I always try to include a world whiskey, at least one. And the idea is to test the world whiskey against the Scotch, to test the old against the new, to test the expensive against the young, right? So it would be interesting to put a kind of booby trap or two in some of these blinds, right?
Yeah, that's true. In the middle of our blind test. Oh, Deepa has a story.
My father was in the army.
Deepa's father was in the army.
So I actually grew up with whiskey.
And grew up with, whiskey culture in the army.
Because the British Empire.
Like the British Empire connection. Yeah. Oh, yeah, bagpipes in Bangalore. March and band.
So the army officers would have whiskey.
All the army officers would have whiskey.
My father would have whiskey. So I always have a sip.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So you'd have a sip as a kid?
From 8 or 7 all the way.
And what type of whiskey was it?
I don't even know.
I think they were probably Johnny Walker type imported whiskey, but was it? They have the Indian whiskey at that time as well.
I have no idea.
But it's definitely there, India. The army culture of the officers' mess, and having a whiskey at the end.
But only men, of course.
Only men.
I think I also remember reading a story once upon a time that's where the kind of whiskey culture in India came from, was that kind of colonial influence, and obviously they seem to be doing quite well out of it now with at least 3 producers. And India is one of the biggest whiskey consumers on the planet now. Most of it is obviously made domestically, and it's not what we would necessarily call whiskey. It's made from things like molasses and things, but they're a massive market, and I'm terrified of the day that the Indian market opens up and has some significant buying power, because we will not be able to buy Scotch if that happens.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
It's good to be scared of, because
it's good to be scared
of corruption on there.
There's too much corruption.
So if you want to corrupt a person, you want to bribe. You give a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, a bottle of whiskey is a very
very, very common, even the police.
And one of my favorite quotes in whiskey is, it's said that in India, they drink more Johnny Walker Red Label than Johnny Walker actually make.
They drink more Johnny Walker in India than they actually make, meaning pirate whiskey. That makes a lot of sense. I know there was a friend of a friend's wedding where all the guests who were coming in from foreign countries, they were just asked to bring one gift, and that was a bottle of whiskey.
We've got a Jason Whiskey Wise is recommend. Jason Whiskey Wise he's from London, but he's Indian, and he's recommending some others. He's saying they've got things like Officer's Choice, Royal Stag, and Antiquity Blue. Now I've tried none of these. I think these are cheaper end Indian whiskies,
right?
And he's saying that these are Indian local brands as well. Let's jump into the chat. I feel like I've neglected the lounge tonight. Let's see. Rolf, Whiskey Wolf is asking me, how was the new make, Roy? It was pretty good, Rolf, I have to be honest. It was very, very malty. There were some kind of sugar sweet notes there, and like a kind of berry creamy thing that I got as well. It was pretty tasty. I'm excited to see what the Glasgow producers are going to come out with in the future. It's a very good time just now in general, but it's great that whiskey's coming back to Glasgow, as I've said before. What else have I missed here? Donald Rance is saying, absolutely spot on. I also found it better to explore each category before moving on. So Donald's talking about world whiskies and trying to understand them each in the context of themselves rather than mixing it up, which I understand completely. Tom R is saying, have them really complicate it and mix some rum into the blind tasting. Now interesting because the whiskey rep brought me a sample of a rum about 6 months ago, and he had me trying to guess what it was, and I was trying to apply some kind of whiskey to it. There are a lot of rum styles out there that would be, you know, very interesting to whiskey drinkers who enjoy a sweeter whiskey, I would say.
It's certainly helpful for understanding the finishes that whiskey can have.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Travis Suders is saying, Travis Soders, Travis, I apologize, I'm doing it again. Good to have you in again, Travis. He's saying great guests tonight. And Hoyt is saying, Roy, enjoying my 19-year-old Linkwood. Fantastic, Hoyt, sounds fantastic. I'm just about to raise a glass and say thank you to, I don't want you to leave yet, guys. I'm just raising this very specific dram, this Talisker Distillers Edition, to say thank you for that 6 weeks of endeavour, the time that it took to put that video together. Only very few of us in this vPub tonight will understand the effort that went into that. And I'd like to say thank you for doing it. It was wonderful to enjoy and watch, and I'm very, very glad that you shared it. Well done, guys, and cheers.
Thanks, Roy, and thanks everyone for the great comments we've had on the video. It's been great fun.
Cheers. Now, of course, if you do plan to hang around, I have to give you a small word of warning that normally guests that hang around are asked to participate in the quiz.
See if I can beat my 4 out of 10 from last night.
You did play the quiz last week, didn't you?
Yeah, I think it was 4. Was it 4 or 5 out of 10? Oh, Deepa said Talisker's not that good now. Which one is better? You actually prefer Auchentoshan? Well, there you go. Anyone who watches the video will know what a turnaround.
That's a very, very cool thing to say there, Deepa. I think that what we're demonstrating here is how fickle we are as opposed to the whiskey.
I have to say, this is Auchentoshan 12. This is the Abelauer Abuna with water. And this is the Talisker. And I'm really enjoying all of them. And they're very, you know, contrasting to each other.
When people ask me what's your favorite kind of whiskey, I tend to just say all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So guys, I'm going to go over to the lounge and just ask everybody, is everybody up for doing and participating in the quiz tonight? I do have a quiz prepared. I would invite Phil and Deepa to participate in the quiz. Perhaps they can even go up against each other rather than go up against the crowd. And then everybody can participate as normal. It is multiple choice, of course. So there's a chance, even if you're guessing, of getting a 33% score each time, right? 1 in 3 chance of getting each question right. McAllen Fine and Rare, the doc is saying, fun to see you, Deepa and Phil. That's the doc. I managed to spend the weekend with the doc. It was fantastic. I just want to recap on that, actually. I just want to let people know, because I know that a lot of people have been asking me and curious as to how I got on in Germany. It was fantastic. When we went along to this show, it was a very different show from the festivals that I'm used to attending in the UK. It was much more formalized, the branding was much more upfront. The booths and everything were much more polished. There was much more representation from core ranges and some kind of special editions there as well. I would say it was very, very interesting to see that and to see that different style of show. But our day was very, very heavily booked up. And I was in 3 masterclasses in one day, and I thought, well, okay, I can get through that. But the first masterclass that I went into had 8 drams in it, and that was a Lafroig and Bowmore masterclass hosted by David Turner and John Campbell from Bowmore and Lafroig, the distillery managers. Fantastic. I didn't finish all those drams. I had to top up wee sample bottles. And then we went into, not so long after that, we went into a Douglas Lane hosted tasting that was hosted by Claire and one of the representatives in Germany, which was very, very good as well. We got to try the new 10-year-old Scallywag, the new 10-year-old regional malts with a twist. And they also had a fantastic 20-year-old Brave Al in the lineup, which was delicious, as well as the brand new Christmas edition Big Pete. And then the end of the day was an Arran tasting. Now, people that watch this channel will know that I'm a fan of Arran already. I think Arran has really, really, truly come of age now. I think they're bringing out fantastic whiskies, and the value is still very much intact there as well. But this presentation was at the end of the day when everybody was full of whiskey. So we were expecting it to be quite bullshit and loud, but it was hosted by Andy Bell from Arran. You know, a younger guy, if I'm honest. And he just owned that room and carried across one of the most informed, interesting, compelling, and passionate masterclass deliveries that I've ever seen. Still kept whiskey, the whiskey that was in the glass, front and center, but completely engaged everybody from start to finish in that tasting, to the point that he got no heckling, he got no trouble at all. Everybody was thoroughly enjoying that. So while every masterclass on that day, the Douglas Lane tasting, the Bowmore Lafroig one, and the Arran one, well, they were all exceptional and very worthwhile masterclasses. I was, and I still remember that Arran presentation. I thought it was fantastic. He would be a great guy to talk to about whiskey. So obvious is the passion. Whiskey Jason is saying Andy Bell is great. I completely agree, Jason. He was fantastic. And Dwayne is saying that's my kind of masterclass with Lafroig and Bowmore, right up your street. Absolutely, Dwayne. And if you ever get the chance to do that, it was absolutely worth it. We were sipping the Vintners edition Bowmore's, 26 and 27 years old. We're trying a 25-year-old Lafroig. It was wonderful, honestly. No, this is Whiskey Vin saying great stream, really good chats. Thanks very much, Vin. Superb. Maybe you could set up that stream for us to do if we get a chance to sip those whiskies that were sent to us today. The Alchemist is saying never going to do the quiz again after last week. Only ways down. Sevi was standout winner, and what's really interesting about that is Sevi considers himself to be a bit of a noob, but he's got a buying affliction, much like Phil and Deepa have. Simon Race, whilst predominantly drinking Scotch at the moment, but subscribe to the Master of Malt Monthly Dram Club and quite enjoy the odd Irish, American, or Taiwanese whiskey. Absolutely. I think one of the best things that you can do to understand Scotch better is to enjoy world whiskies. I really believe it's a fantastic thing to do. To not do it would be a mistake. Emery McGill, nice to see you, Emery. He's saying, I'm planning a trip to Scotland soon. I may have to bring an empty suitcase because my wallet will take a beating. Let me tell you that is the story I hear from and see and witness from every single visitor. I usually get a phone call along the lines of, I need packing material, need another suitcase, need some help in getting more whiskey back to Scotland. That's always happening. Emery, keep in touch and let me know when you do get across here. If I get an opportunity to say hello, if you're passing anywhere near Glasgow, that would be a pleasure. Fantastic. Okay, if Jason is still in, Jason, are you here, my friend? Gregor is saying, get Andy on the show to share the passion, Roy. Well, Andy Bell, that'd be interesting. I only spoke to him very briefly afterwards. I didn't suggest anything about the show or doing any kind of collaboration. But I think, yeah, I'm always reluctant to talk more about what he presented in the context of how he presented the whiskey, because to get that on a live stream actually would be very, very interesting. Because I get the sense from him, while he's very much employed by Arran, he would be excited to talk about whiskey in a very general and valuable sense too. Good. I think I'm pretty much caught up, guys. I think my moderators have done a good job of feeding me tonight. So what I'm going to come in is I'm going to kill this share. And I'm going to attempt to share the quiz. How are you guys feeling? Are you up for doing a quiz?
Oh yeah, we're ready. We have our papers at the ready.
You're sure you don't feel like I've put you on the spot a little bit?
I'm confident that I'm going to be scoring at least 4, maybe 5.
Well, I think what we say here is that I have to be honest, that the quiz questions tonight, a lot of them are Whiskey Rev questions. And if I'm honest, I don't think I would have scored very highly on today's quiz. But you know, you never know. You know, if you know, you know. And we have to bear in mind that with you guys especially, nobody's expecting you to score particularly highly because you're very much presenting yourselves as whiskey noobs, right? So there's no pressure. Are you guys going to go up against each other? Because I think that would be fun.
It's going to be a separate competition here.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay.
Deepa's very competitive.
Let's get this running. Okay, let's start this. 10 questions. Don't know if Jason is in, whether he's able to run the crowd. Now, remember, you're keeping your own score. Occasionally at halfway point, usually I'll ask you how your scores are, and then I'll obviously ask you to share your scores at the end. It's optional whether you do or not. And remember that this is all just for fun. And if you're tempted to follow the answers of other people, it's very common for people putting the quizzes together to put in banana skins. So don't be tempted to follow the crowd all the time. Jason, good man, he's writing quiz time, so he's ready. Question number 1 is coming up. You should see that. Okay. Which distillery has recently relaunched with a 12-year-old, a distiller's dram, and a 20-year-old? So this is a recent relaunch from which distillery? Is it A, Old Pulteney, B, Glenrothes, or C, Mortlach? A, Old Pulteney, B, Glenrothes, or C, Mortlach? Now, what's interesting is all of those distilleries have recently relaunched. But we're looking for a 12-year-old, a 16-year-old called the Distiller's Dram, and a 20-year-old. Let me snatch the chat as it's whizzing by, trying to size it into a shape that I can see. Wow. All over the place on this one. Looks like a heavy majority leaning towards C. Scotch for Dummies is in. Good to see you guys. You need to let me know whether you're doing a live stream tonight. I believe at this point I've already announced that I don't think you guys are doing a live. Let me know if that's changed and if you're changed your mind. Tom R is saying C, as well as Chris Banks Wildlife, The Alchemist, T Green, Jean de la Cuisine. Anna is saying C, Kilted Moose C. Lots of people think Mortlach C. Daniel Whiskey Throttle is saying A, Old Pulteney, as well as Matt. Let's have a wee look. The distillery that's launched a 12-year-old, a 16-year-old distiller's dram, and a 20-year-old is, in fact, Mortlach. Mortlach.
Oh, damn.
We both had B.
Unlucky. So that's you starting out. That's you starting out on a donut already. You've got a big 0.
Have a drink.
Scotch for Dummies are saying they're not doing a live tonight. We're drying. I understand completely after the weekend and a few days that you guys have had. You just need some time to kind of recalibrate again. I understand completely. The Alchemist is saying, I'm sure I saw the Distiller's Dram on Master Malt today. Is it out yet? I didn't think it was out yet. I'm very curious to try it. Mortlach is a favourite of mine. And it'd be interesting to see how they've got on with a slightly less cynical relaunch than the last time they launched and just premiumized it completely out of its own market. Christina Zarpoli's in. Good to see you, Christina. Nice to have you in again. Let's see what Christina answered. Christina said B. Unlucky. Okay, let's go on to question 2. Which distillery famously welcomed Queen Victoria and Prince Albert in 1848? Now, of course, we weren't around for this, but it's a fairly famous story. And this distillery recalls the story at every opportunity. Which distillery famously welcomed Queen Victoria and Prince Albert in 1848? Is it Royal Lochnagar, Laphroaig, or Glenurry Royal? Jason Whiskey Wise is saying he's going to send some up to me, you star. Did you get your hands on a bottle? Because I know that you've been reviewing on the channel recently the press samples, right? But yeah, I'd be really keen to try it, see what it's like. I'm actually quite enjoying this Talisker tonight, guys. How's it going down for you?
Yeah, it's doing well.
I
I think it's worth a little bit more.
Having a wee bit more.
Yeah, it's holding up. We're still enjoying it.
Tony Evans thinks A. Macallan Fine and Rare. The doc says A. Frank Harding A. Most people are saying A. I think here Anna's saying A. Jens Roger Christofferson. Good to see you, Jens. And I know that I'm probably making a a mess of your name, pronouncing your name, but you think it's C. Whiskey Wolf Rolf is saying, saw your review today, Jason Whiskey Wise. Yes, I caught that quite early. When I saw Mortlach 16 coming up, I jumped on it straight away. Whiskey Jason is saying A. Tim Willie is saying A. Lots and lots and lots of people saying A. T Green saying B. Let's see. It is, in fact, Royal Lochnagar.
Right.
I see Phil doing a kind of a fist pump there. So you've got one, you're off and running. It was apparently an invite went out from the distillery manager to Prince Albert, and the next day Prince Albert turned up with his wife in tow, Queen Victoria, and their children as well. Famous story. Let's go to question 3 and ask, which distillery can you see the personalised number plate DAL 12Y on a truck taking casks around the distillery? DAL 12Y. So I'm sure you've already got it in your head what that could be, but is it A. Dalmore, B. Dallas Dew, or C. Dalwhinnie? A. Dalmore, B. Dallas Dew, or C. Dalwhinnie? Which distillery has a truck with a registration plate DAL 12Y? The Alchemist is asking, how many distilleries have the Royal Decree? The Royal Decree, I think, that was a quiz question in the past, Sevi, and I think we said 2. The most obvious one being Royal Lochnagar. Lefroig, in fact, I'm not going to say too much because there might be a question a wee bit later on directly relating to this, Sevi. So let me stop myself there, my friend. Question 3, Whiskey Jason is saying A. Lots of people saying A. Lots of people saying C as well. Mark, Tim, and Barton all saying C, as well as Whiskey Throttle and Dwayne, Kilted Moose, C. It's either C or A. Not many people thinking that it's Dallas Dew, because you're, I guess, mostly well-informed folk. Let's see. It is, in fact, Dalmore. So if you said A, give yourself a point. It's Dalmore. Dallas Dew is obviously a museum, a working museum, though, although there are plans afoot to try and have it as a working distillery again. And Dalwhinnie apparently doesn't have a truck with that as a registration. Let's move on to question 4 quickly, and this is a pictorial question. Just going to show you an image of the distillery, and I'll give you 3 options, and you can tell me which distillery it is. Whiskey Jason is on full marks, 3 out of 3 already. Well done, Jason. Let's see if you can make it 4 out of 4 with this image. This is a picture of a distillery. Which distillery is it? Is it A, Ballindalloch, B, Kilchoman, or C, Annandale? Is it Ballindalloch in Speyside? Is it Kilchoman on Islay? Or is it Annandale down close to the borders? I'm going to leave that up there instead of clicking back to me so that you can see the image. I can see Deepa when really close to the screen. She can read. That's funny. Okay. People are torn between A and C here. They either think it's Ballindalloch in Speyside or Annandale in the borders. A or C, A or C, A or C, splitting everybody. So let's reveal. It is, in fact, Ballindalloch in Speyside. And there you can see I've revealed the whitewash to show the distillery name. That's what you see from the road as you drive past. You can see Ballindalloch. So if you answered A for Ballindalloch, give yourself a point as we move on to question 5. This is an interesting one, and it's linked to a question that came up very, very recently. The earliest reference to a distilling site in the Scottish Parliament is 1690, but which site is it? Interesting use of language here, and the earliest reference to a distilling site. Is it A, Gersten, B, Ferrentosh, or C, Lindores? Sometimes I like these little historical questions to come in, right? So this is the earliest ever reference towards a place of known distillation in Scotland. So we're speaking about legal distillation back as far as 1690. Or let's say permitted distillation. A. Gersten, B. Ferrantosh, or C. Lindors. Emery McGill is saying Aquavite. I'll have to finish tomorrow. 3 out of 4 so far. Good for you, Emery. Put it in the comments and let us know how you're getting on. I noticed that Amy hasn't been in tonight, so it's probably unlikely that we're going to make that 100 thumbs up tonight. If you've enjoyed tonight, if you've enjoyed hanging out with our guests, Phil and Deepa, let them know by leaving a little comment in the video afterwards, and they can jump in and read your comments and leave a little thumbs up. As you know, it helps us all. Everybody seems to think that this is C, which is, in fact, Lindors. But the earliest reference to a distilling site in the Scottish Parliament in 1690 was Ferrantosh. Oh, I saw Phil, saw a reaction there. Was that disappointment or sadness or happiness?
I'm coming back.
Deepa's coming back for more quizzes next week.
So the story here is that I think it was the Forbes family during the Great Rebellion or the Glorious Rebellion or the whatever it was called. They lost a lot of land and a lot of property in the damage, and as part of a recompense, they were allowed to distill tax-free or virtually tax-free. And very, very quickly, they became the biggest distillers in Scotland through that arrangement. And it lasted some amount of years. But when it was taken away, they failed and the distillery collapsed soon after. Now, Ferrantosh Distillery itself was, in fact, a distillery. But what tends to happen is when people talk about the great lost Ferrantosh, as written about by Robert Burns, for example, they're actually talking about the site where Ferrantosh was located alongside a lot of other distilleries that arrived under the same financial arrangement as the Forbes family were afforded. So there were a lot of distilleries on that site. So when people talk about Ferrantosh, that tends to be what they're talking about. Hoyt is saying, wasn't Lindors a historic site too? Yes, you're talking about the 1494 records of Friar John Corr, where he was awarded 8 balls of malt for which to make aquavite. You might remember that from a very recent quiz. That's what Lindors is about. He's talking about the first mention of aquavite in distilling in Scotland, which is a couple hundred years before the Ferrantosh reference, Hoyt. Okay, good. Let's move on to question 6 and ask, it's a wee bit easier, I hope. Cutty Sark is a famous Scotch blend and also a what? What is Cutty Sark? Is Cutty Sark a fast clipper ship? A. Is it a steel weapon? B. Or is it a war cannon? C. What other kind of cannons can you get if they're not war cannons, right? So is Cutty Sark a fast clipper ship? Is it a steel weapon? Or is it a war cannon? You feeling confident about this one, guys?
Yeah, because the marathon runs around it. That's what.
All right, okay. I think this is a relative giveaway, this one.
Unless you're from India.
Ah, okay, okay. Let's see. A Cutty Sark is indeed a fast clipper ship. Apparently, I'm told by the Whiskey Rev, between the years of 1885 and 1895, it was the fastest clipper ship in the world. I think that was his words, anyway. And obviously, it's depicted on the bottles of Cutty Sark. Cutty Sark has now been sold, actually, from Edrington to Glenmurray, I noticed recently. So the owners of Glenmurray now own Cutty Sark blend as well, and Edrington has sold it off. Amy is shouting. She said, I've been here. Good for you, Amy. That means hopefully you're feeling a wee bit better. I know that you're feeling a wee bit poorly last week. I'm glad to see you in it, and I hope that you're feeling better again. Let's move on to question 7. Which Scottish town has distilleries known as the Gibbet, Glennies, Caper, the Heelan, and Gilbeys? I'll be honest, I would not have got this question. This would have been a pure guess by me. I didn't know this, so it's quite interesting. Which Scottish town has the Gibbet, Glennies, Caper, Heelan, and Gilbeys? Is it A, Keith, B, Dufton, or C, Rothes? It's one of those Speyside distilling towns. A, Keith, B, Dufton, C, Rothes. Now, these are obviously nicknames or alternate names for these, for more famous distilling sites, right? These are not known names for these distilleries, I guess, unless you're perhaps local or in the industry. Lots of people say B. Lots of people seem to think it's B. Frank Harding is saying C. Mark Slinger is also saying C. John Paul van der Hoven thinks A. Good to have you all in, guys. Matt Hill thinks B. Christine Deems. Hi, Christine. She's saying B. Jeremy Sims is saying great. There is a Simpsons joke in there. Yeah, is there? Is that Gilbeys, I wonder? Okay, let's put you out your misery. Do you have any idea of this one, guys?
No idea. We both guessed A with no idea though.
Okay, let's have a look and see. The Scottish town is Rothes. And apparently, the Gibbet is Speyburn, Glennies is Glengrant, Caper is obviously Caperdonick, closed distillery now. The Heelan is Glenrothes, and Gilbeys is Glen Spey. Like I say, this was complete new to my ears. I knew none of this. And Whiskey Throttle is saying, I am guessing on all the questions. Good for you, Daniel. Good for you, my friend. Okay, Jeremy Sims is saying, Duffman says Dufton. That's the Simpsons joke. Excellent. Okay, question number 8. Which of the royal distilleries decided for a time to remove their royal patronage after criticism from the Duke of Edinburgh? It's not like the Duke of Edinburgh to criticise, is it? But after he criticised this distillery, they chose to remove their royal patronage for a while. Was it A, Royal Lochnagar, B, Laphroaig, or C, Glenurry Royal? Interesting question. Amy's chasing the thumbs up. She's saying only 6 away. Fantastic, Amy. You're a superstar. Celtic Moose Scott is saying, I'm having an absolute stinker tonight. Scott, I have to be honest with you. When these questions were provided, I think there's a good chance I'd have failed this quiz tonight. A really good chance. Dylan Thomas is saying, I'm not even able to drink even the most expensive single malt without a dash of soda water. I cannot even relish a drop of water. Okay, Dylan, so are you saying that all single malt, you need that water in there to enjoy it? It's absolutely fine. The whiskey is yours to drink as you see fit. And if that's the way that you're enjoying your whiskey, continue to enjoy it that way, Dylan. Absolutely. Jeremy Sims is saying B, Dwayne Large is saying C, and Anna is saying B. So yeah, you can always tell when the quizzes are difficult when the answers are fragmented like this. There's nobody following a pattern on most of these, Rev. You've set some tough questions tonight. Let's have a look. You want to have a guess at this? What do you think, guys?
A and C.
Okay, you're split. I'm going to just quickly tell you, I want to see Deepa's reaction. A is correct. Royal Lochnagar. A. It is indeed A. Now, I don't know how long this happened for. I don't know how long they returned to just being Loch Nagar, but it was some time, and it was eventually reinstated after mutual agreement, I'm led to understand. So there you go. If you answered A for Royal Loch Nagar, give yourself a point. And we are on question 9. Which distillery shipped, this is an interesting question, I like this. Which distillery shipped 2,300 filled casks from Speyside to Campbelltown in 1922 to benefit from the maritime atmosphere? Now, the reason I like this question is just that concept that back in 1922, they were willing to go to great lengths to experiment with provenance and the effect that the environment could have on the maturation of the whiskey, which I think is a really interesting question. But it was happening by this distillery manager at this distillery way back in 1922. Was it A, Glendullan, B, Craigellachie, or C, Glenelgan? So we're obviously very firmly in Speyside, but which of these 3 distilleries shipped 2,300 casks down to Campbelltown for maturation? A, Glendullan, B, Craigellachie, or C, Glenelgan? You feeling confident about this one? I had no clue about this one, I have to be honest. B seems to be the popular guess this time. B. Couple of people going for C, but B seems to be between B and C. It looks like. Let's have a wee look. Back in 1922, 2,300 casks were filled at Speyside and sent to Campbelltown from B.
It was the only thing I got it.
The only thing people could lip read.
Did one of you get a point there?
Both of us. Hooray.
Oh wow, fantastic, well done. So let's we go on to the very, very last question then. Let's everybody just tell us where you are on the scores with one question to go, and see how we are getting on. What are your scores so far? Like I've said quite a few times already, this is a pretty tricky quiz, one that would have challenged me. One of my patrons actually has asked if they can set a quiz with a view to me actually taking the quiz one night, which I'm very, very up for. I would be quite excited to do that, for me to be the recipient. Obviously, I would just give him the kit to make this quiz. We just need to work out how we could do that technically, but I'd be totally up for doing that. That would be very cool. Santa Cruz is in. Hi, Chris. He's saying 1 out of 1. Maybe joined us a wee bit late. T Green is saying 2. Donald Rance 3. Mark Brown 3. 5, 4, 6, 5, 6, 6, 5, 5, 7. Chad Adams is in 7. That's a fantastic score, as well as the Doc on 7 out of 9. I would expect nothing less, Doc. Fantastic effort. The Alchemist Sevi is saying shambles, 5 out of 9. You've got a pass already, Sevi. I wouldn't be disappointed, especially given how difficult this is. Steve A is on 7 out of 9, having missed one question entirely. Rather astounded, really. Superb job, Steve. Fantastic score. Quite a few of you on quite high scores. Anna thinks that she's on 7 out of 9 as well. Wow. So it looks like the high score tonight is going to be 8 out of 9, which I'm really surprised at. That would be a fantastic score for this quiz. I think it's a tough one tonight. Let's have a look at the last question. Which region? Now, I'm speaking about general geographic regions here, not Scotch whisky producing regions, you'll see in a second. Which region has the highest exports of Scotch whisky by value? So where does Scotland export the highest by value to of these 3 markets? Is it A, North America, B, the European Union, or C, Asia? I'm speaking about Scotch whisky in a general sense, not single malt, Scotch whisky, and by value rather than volume. Who buys the most? Where does Scotland, or where does the British Exchequer get the most money from? Which of those markets? North America, A, European Union, B, or Asia, C? Cruising thinks C, Tomar, A. Sirchud68, it's a new name, welcome in, saying A. Doing large A, Whiskey Throttle B, T Green C, Tim Willie C, The Alchemist C. Okay, a wee bit all over the place here. Some guesswork going on, no question. Phil Deepa, would you like to make a guess? Where does most of the money come in? C. C, okay. So you think Asia?
Crazy Rich Asians we're going with.
Yeah, I see what you're thinking. Okay, let's see if you're right. I think most of the answers are in now, and it's fragmented. This one, it's all over the place. This quiz has been really, really quite divisive. I like it a lot. Let's see. The region with the highest exports by value is, in fact, the European Union.
Stop.
The European Union. Jeremy Simpson saying, well, that depends on how you class Asia. India is a big market that could sway the answer. Absolutely. And there's a problem. There's a general Scotch whisky trade agreement problem with India right now. Like I say, if they ever open up those floodgates, we're in trouble because we're simply not making enough whisky to handle that, I think. But then what do I know? Okay, that's the score over. Gregor is saying OMG. Yeah, it is a surprise. It's a surprise to me. And we are facing this scenario right now in the UK where everything is literally in limbo. We have no idea what is happening next year. It could be great. It could be terrible. I think it's more than likely to be terrible. Okay, sorry, the camera's locked on you guys. Let's get it back to automatic and we go and see and saying the French, Robert Licorice is saying the French do love their single malt. Absolutely. It's one of the, in fact, I think it's by far the biggest market for the likes of Aberlour, for example. Rolf got 6 out of 10. Arbaggy, Andy, you're absolutely right. You're saying tough quiz, and I agree with you fully. John Paul van der Hoven, 4 out of 10. No pass tonight, John Paul. You usually do much better than that. Was a tough quiz. Moses saying 5 out of 10. Good to see you, Mose. Oh no, the banana skins got me. Absolutely. Travis got 7 out of 10. Not too bad. Excellent scores, Travis, for that quiz. Donald is admitting he got 3 out of 10. Unlucky Donald. Tom, 6 out of 10. Pass mark Tom. Malt Mafioso, my friend, as if by magic, appears when we talk about Brexit, and he's and he's saying not for long. Lol. Good to see you, Roberto. Good to welcome you in, my friend. Who has got 8? McAuliffe Fine and Rare get 8 out of 10. I think that's the best score of the night, Doc. I think you take tonight's plaudits. Is anybody matching the Doc, or is he standing there out on his own with a fantastic 8 out of 10? I think you take the honours, Doc. Well done. Like I've admitted, a very, very tough quiz. Now, you guys are holding something up at the screen. What's this? Your scores. Oh, wow. Phil takes the awards. You get 4 out of 10. That's probably what you predicted, right?
equal best score.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Deepa says, see you next quiz.
See you next quiz. Okay, this is going to be a bit of a kind of a domestic rivalry thing going on here from now on in, right?
Yeah. Does that mean I get an extra glass for four?
I have to be honest with you. There's every chance I would have scored a 3 or a 4 out of 10 on that quiz tonight. Really, I felt the questions were really interesting questions, intriguing questions, but difficult and not ones that I would necessarily know on. Whiskey Throttle said Aquavite. I think I only got 2 wrong, but who's counting? Barton is saying adios, have a great night. Thank you for joining tonight, Barton. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I hope we'll see you back here again soon. Amy has managed to get the likes up over 100 again while we're still live. Amy, you're a superstar. Thank you so much for everything. Yes, I think we are just nudging over 2 hours. That's amazing to me. It's just amazing how fast this time goes. Do you feel that's gone fast, guys?
Yeah, really fast.
It's crazy, right?
I mean, we did have to pour more whiskey, so that was an indicator that the time was passing, but still.
As long as you were enjoying yourselves.
Yeah.
Speaking to me from my perspective personally, I've loved having you on tonight, and I knew that I was going to enjoy it because I was really enjoying chatting to you last night before you came on when we did the tech check and things like that. Dwayne Large has just sent in $10 and said, thanks, Roy. This was a nice show with Phil and Deepa. Best wishes and good night to all. Dwayne, thank you so much again for your generous dram. lovely to see you again this year, and I hope that you're already planning your trip back again next year, my friend. Cheers.
We're going to finish with the talent with a
Phil and Deepa are pouring another Auchentoshan to raise a glass to you as well. John Paul van der Hoven has sent a dram along and said, good show, good quiz, great guests. Thank you so much, Jan Paul. Wonderful to have you in again, my friend. Always great to welcome you here, and thank you for your generous dram. Cheers. Hoyt is saying, great live stream tonight. Thank you very much, Hoyt. Wonderful to have you in again. Anna's saying, did you try the new make in the end? Yes, Anna, did you not witness me trying it? It tastes very, very malty to me, very bizarrely easily drinkable for 63.5%. But I did feel the flush of the alcohol. I did feel the effects of it at the time. Bit of kind of a blueberry note I got from it, like a candy blueberry, sugary, ice and sugar candy blueberry thing. I don't know. Maybe blueberries are in my mind because I was eating blueberries tonight, but it's that kind of flavour. But there was a nice creaminess to it as well. I'm very interested to see what Clydeside Distillery brings. Anna works at Clydeside Distillery, which is why she's keen to hear what I thought about it, I'm sure. Whiskey Jason is saying, good night, sir. Good night, Jason. And I hope that next time I'm either bold enough to interrupt you while you're interviewing, or we get a chance to meet up either in Germany or Scotland sometime soon. And once more, I apologise for missing you this time. Steve is saying, time to head out. Thanks for the stream, Roy. Thanks for joining, Steve. Good job on the quiz as well. Era is saying, friend Era from Belgium is saying, very nice evening. Interesting quiz. Wonderful guests. I agree wholeheartedly, Era. Thank you very much. Jason Whiskey Wise is saying, thank you all for joining in tonight. Fantastic stream. Wonderful hosts with Phil and Deepa. Anna is saying, you can watch on the replay, Anna, don't worry. Whiskey Throttle from Canada has just said, best guests ever. I love the reality check and honesty. Fantastic, Daniel. Daniel also has his own YouTube channel, and he's very active on Instagram as well. I got the pleasure of hanging out with Daniel during his visit to Scotland for a little while. He's a really cool, laid-back guy as well. He reminds me of a Canadian John Wayne. Lovely guy. Frank Harden is saying, great show tonight, Aquavite. Brilliant guests. I agree completely, Frank. Let's do some housekeeping here before I hang up. I think I've covered most of it. I've mentioned to you that Try 9C are going live tonight, so please tune into those guys if you are on the time zone. They're at 8 p.m. Pacific, and I'm sure that they'll have fun in store. Drinkle Plinkle perhaps will raise its head, I hope. Scotch 4 Dummies are not going to be live tonight. And it seems the guys at Cask Strength are choosing a Wednesday. Maybe they're going to go out the night before. Sometimes those guys are live on a Thursday, but I can see that they went live last night. This has been an absolute blast, Phil and Deepa.
Deepa's recommending Auchentoshan 12 for today's win.
Yeah, it's the best dram of the day.
Yeah.
Well, let's raise a little glass then, and I'll just say to you, I want you to hang on in the call after I kill the stream and things, and I'll say goodbye to you after the stream. But I want to, in the stream, just raise a glass and say thank you so much for joining. I'm very glad to have had you here. I loved the video. I want everybody to see that video. I think it was a wonderful piece of work, and I'm very grateful for the effort that you put in. Thanks for joining me tonight, my friends.
Thanks, Roy, and thanks for everyone making us feel so welcome. It's been a pleasure. New friendships. Absolutely.
That's what whiskey is best at. I'll say thank you very much to my two moderators tonight, my friend and stalwart, the Whiskey Rev. Even though he's up there on Speyside, we still have a chance to connect and hang out in live streams like this. And my buddy from down in London, Jason Whiskey Wise, who's always there riding shotgun and looking after me. Congratulations to Jason Whiskey Wise for breaking 2K subs. And my friend Vin at No Ounces Whiskey for doing 3K as well. It's good times on Whiskey Community and YouTube. Thanks to everybody for joining in. It's wonderful to hang out with you on these Thursday nights, and I very much look forward to having Thursday nights throughout December, weekly streams this month, just to make the most of whiskey season. Sláinte to all. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your generous donations, and I'll see you in 1 week. Sláinte.